I sent my daughter's husband $280,000 over 7 years, and last week I found out her ashes were fake. Her name was Willow, 29 years old, when the police called to tell me she'd been killed in a single-car accident on Route 9, just outside Millbrook. They said the vehicle had caught fire, that her body was burned beyond recognition, that dental records confirmed it was her. I remember standing in my kitchen, the phone pressed so hard against my ear it left a mark, and thinking that the world had stopped rotating. My wife Gloria took it worse than I did. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping. 6 months later, she had a stroke in our bathroom at 3 in the morning. I found her on the tile floor, already gone. The doctor said it was a massive cerebral hemorrhage, but I knew what it really was. Grief doesn't just break your heart. Sometimes it stops it entirely. Brad, my son-in-law, had been married to Willow for 4 years when she died. He called me 2 weeks after the funeral, his voice hollow and broken, and told me he didn't know how he'd manage. He had Ivy to think about, my granddaughter, who was barely 6 months old at the time. The mortgage was crushing him. Daycare was expensive. He was drowning. I didn't hesitate. I told him I'd help. $40,000 a year, wired directly to his account on the 1st of January, every year. No strings. No questions. It was what Gloria would have wanted. It was what any father would do. That was 7 years ago. Last Tuesday, Ivy called me from Brad's phone while he was in the shower. She's 7 now, sharp as a tack, with Willow's green eyes and her mother's stubborn chin. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Grandpa, you need to stop sending Daddy money." I was in my study, reviewing some investment statements. I set them down carefully. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "He's not sad anymore. He's got a new friend. A lady. She's mean to me." Her voice cracked. "And Grandpa, watch him. Please watch him." Then I heard the bathroom door open in the background, and she hung up. I sat there for a long time after that, staring at the phone in my hand. Ivy wasn't the kind of child who lied or exaggerated. She was cautious, observant. If she was warning me, there was a reason. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Brad, about how little I'd actually seen him over the past few years. He'd moved to Poughkeepsie, about 40 minutes away, claiming he needed a fresh start. I'd visit Ivy once a month, sometimes twice, but Brad was always cordial and distant, grateful but guarded. I chalked it up to grief, to the weight of single parenthood. Now I wondered if I'd been a fool. The next morning, I drove to Poughkeepsie. I didn't call ahead. I wanted to see Brad's life as it actually was, not as he presented it to me. The address I had for him was a modest 2-story colonial on a tree-lined street. The lawn was freshly mowed. There was a late-model Audi in the driveway, not the beat-up Honda he'd driven 7 years ago. I parked across the street and waited. At 11:30, Brad emerged from the house with a woman I'd never seen before. She was tall, mid-30s, blonde hair pulled into a sleek ponytail. She wore yoga pants and a designer jacket. They were laughing. He opened the Audi's passenger door for her, kissed her on the cheek, and they drove off together. I followed them to a cafe downtown. They sat outside, sharing a pastry, his hand covering hers on the table. He looked relaxed, happy, not like a man still grieving his wife. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I went home and started digging. The first thing I checked was his social media. Brad had always been private online, but this woman, her name was Vanessa Holt, according to her very public Instagram, had posted photos of them together going back 18 months. Dinners, weekend trips, a beach vacation in the Bahamas last summer. In one photo, Brad was holding Ivy, and Vanessa's hand was on his shoulder, her smile wide and possessive. 18 months. He'd been with her for 18 months and never mentioned it to me. Not once. I felt something cold settle in my chest. I pulled my bank records next. Every January 1st, like clockwork, I'd send him $40,000, $280,000 total. I'd never asked what he spent it on. I'd assumed it was mortgage payments, groceries, medical bills, the things a single father would need. But if he was living well enough to drive an Audi and vacation in the Bahamas, what had he done with my money? I called my accountant, a sharp woman named Patricia who'd been managing my finances for 20 years. I asked her to pull together everything I had on Brad, bank transfers, any correspondence. Anything that might give me a paper trail. Stephen, she said carefully, do you suspect something? I suspect I've been very stupid, I said. She promised to have the information by end of day. That afternoon, I went to see Willow's urn. It sat on the mantel in my living room, right beside a framed photo of her holding Ivy as a newborn. The urn was brushed bronze, elegant and simple, with Willow's name engraved on a small plaque. I'd kept it there for 7 years, a constant reminder of what I'd lost. I'd never opened it, never had a reason to. But now, with Ivy's warning echoing in my mind and Brad's secret life unfolding in front of me, I felt compelled. I lifted it down carefully. It was heavier than I expected. I unscrewed the lid with trembling hands. Inside was not ash. It was coffee grounds. Dark, coarse, unmistakable, mixed with cinnamon. I stood there, the urn in my hands, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack a rib. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an accident. Someone had deliberately filled this urn with coffee and cinnamon and given it to me as my daughter's remains. I thought of the funeral, the closed casket, Brad insisting we didn't need to see her, that it would be too traumatic, the cremation he'd arranged privately, without my input, the urn he'd handed me with tears in his eyes and a choked voice. Had he been acting the whole time? I set the urn down on the coffee table and called Roger Stevens. Roger and I went back 40 years. He'd been a detective with the state police before he retired, and he owed me a favor from a business deal I'd helped him with a decade ago. More than that, he was someone I trusted. Roger, I said when he answered, I need your help, and I need you to keep it quiet. He heard the tone in my voice. What's going on, Stephen? I told him everything. Ivy's warning, Brad's secret girlfriend, the Audi, the Bahamas, the urn full of coffee grounds. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Roger said, You think she's alive? I don't know what I think, I said, but I need to find out. Give me 2 days, Roger said. I'll make some calls. I spent those 2 days in a fog. I went through the motions, ate meals I didn't taste, answered emails I didn't care about, sat in my study staring at financial statements I couldn't focus on. All I could think about was Willow, about whether my daughter might still be alive, about whether Brad had orchestrated some sick, elaborate fraud, and if he had, why. Roger called me back on Thursday afternoon. His voice was grim. Stephen, we need to meet. Not over the phone. We met at a diner on the edge of town, the kind of place where no one paid attention to anyone else. Roger slid into the booth across from me, a manila folder in his hands. I pulled the accident report, he said, and I made some calls to people I know in the state police and the medical examiner's office. And the dental records used to identify your daughter came from a clinic in Albany. I tracked down the dentist who supposedly provided them. He retired 4 years ago and moved to Arizona. I called him. He doesn't remember ever treating anyone named Willow Harper. My blood turned to ice. What are you saying? I'm saying the identification was falsified. Roger leaned forward. Stephen, the body in that car was never your daughter. Someone staged that accident, used a fake ID, and walked away. And someone paid to make sure the paperwork looked legitimate. Brad, I said. Roger nodded. That'd be my guess. But here's the thing. If Willow's alive, she's in on it too. You don't fake your own death without cooperation. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Why would she do that? Why would she put me through this? Put Gloria through this? Money, Roger said simply. You've sent Brad $280,000 over 7 years. That's motive enough. But there might be more. Life insurance. Assets. I don't know yet. I thought of Gloria, dying of a broken heart 6 months after Willow's supposed death. I thought of the years I'd spent mourning, the birthdays and holidays I'd endured alone, the nights I'd stared at that urn and wished I could have saved her, and all of it had been a lie. I want proof, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. I want to know where she is. I want to know what they did. Roger tapped the folder. I've got a friend who does private investigation work. Discreet. Expensive. But good. If Willow's out there, he'll find her. It'll take a week, maybe 2. Do it, I said. Whatever it costs. Roger nodded and slid a business card across the table. In the meantime, Don't tip your hand. Keep sending Brad the money. Act like nothing's changed. If they think you're onto them, they'll disappear. I pocketed the card. I can do that. But inside, I was already planning. I went home and opened my safe. Inside was a lockbox containing copies of every financial document related to Brad, the wire transfers, a signed letter from him thanking me for my support, emails where he detailed his supposed financial struggles. I'd kept them out of habit, not suspicion. Now they were evidence. I also had something else. Something I'd set up years ago, back when Gloria was still alive. A revocable trust. Gloria and I had established it to protect our assets and ensure Ivy would be taken care of if anything happened to us. The trust named me as the primary trustee and Ivy as the sole beneficiary. Brad wasn't included. At the time, it had seemed like a smart estate planning move. Now it was leverage. Because here's the thing about a revocable trust. I could change the terms at any time. I could add conditions, requirements, consequences, and I could cut Brad out entirely. I called my estate attorney, a man named Harold Finch who'd been practicing law longer than I'd been alive. I explained the situation. Not all of it, not yet, but enough. Harold, I need to add a clause to the trust. If it's ever proven that Brad Harper engaged in fraud or misrepresentation regarding Willow's death, he forfeits any claim to Ivy's guardianship, and I'm granted emergency custody. Harold was quiet for a moment. Stephen, that's a very specific clause. Do you have reason to believe? I have reason to be cautious, I said. Can you do it? I can. It'll take a few days to draft and file. Do it quickly, I said. And Harold, no one can know. Not yet. He agreed. That weekend, I visited Ivy. Brad answered the door, all smiles and warmth, and invited me in. Vanessa was there, sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, her legs tucked under her. She stood when I entered, extending a hand. You must be Stephen, she said brightly. I've heard so much about you. I shook her hand, studying her face. Up close, she looked familiar. I couldn't place it. Vanessa's been such a help with Ivy, Brad said, his arm around her waist. I don't know what I'd do without her. That's very kind of you, I said evenly. Ivy appeared from the hallway, her face lighting up when she saw me. She ran to me, and I scooped her up, hugging her tightly. Over her shoulder, I watched Brad and Vanessa exchange a glance. It was quick, almost imperceptible, but I saw it. They were nervous. Good. I spent an hour with Ivy, playing games and reading her stories, while Brad and Vanessa hovered nearby, making small talk. I didn't mention the money, didn't mention Vanessa's Instagram photos, or the Audi, or the Bahamas. I was pleasant, grandfatherly, harmless. When I left, Brad walked me to the door. Thanks for coming by, Stephen, he said. It means a lot to Ivy, and to me. I met his eyes. Family is everything, Brad. I'd do anything for her. He smiled. I know you would. I drove home with my jaw clenched so tightly it ached. Roger called me on Monday. We found her. My heart stopped. Where? Upstate New York. A small town called Rhinebeck. She's going by the name Emma Clark. Works at a boutique. Lives in an apartment above a coffee shop. Is she alone? As far as we can tell. No husband. No kids. She keeps a low profile. I closed my eyes. You're sure it's her? My guy got photos. I'm sending them now. My phone buzzed. I opened the attachment, and there she was. Willow. Older. Her hair shorter and darker, but unmistakably my daughter. She was alive, and she'd let me believe she was dead. There's more, Roger said. Vanessa Holt, the woman with Brad. She's Willow's half-sister. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. What? Different mothers. Same father. I dug into the records. Vanessa grew up in Syracuse. Her mother had an affair with Willow's biological father before you adopted Willow. They found each other about 8 years ago through one of those ancestry DNA sites. Looks like they've been close ever since. The pieces were falling into place. Willow and Vanessa had planned this together. Faked Willow's death. Let Brad play the grieving widower while they siphoned money from me. How much time do I have? I asked. For what? Before they realize I know. Roger paused. Hard to say. Could be days. Could be weeks. Depends on whether they're paying attention. I need to move fast, I said. What are you planning, Stephen? Justice, I said and hung up. I called Harold that afternoon. The clause, is it done? Signed and filed this morning. Good. Now I need you to draft a second document. A formal demand letter to Brad Harper, stating that I'm seeking repayment of the $280,000 I've given him, on the grounds that it was obtained under false pretenses. Give him 14 days to respond. If he doesn't, I'm filing a civil suit for fraud. Harold hesitated. Stephen, if you're accusing him of fraud, you'll need evidence. I have it, and I'm getting more. All right, I'll have the letter ready by Wednesday. Send it certified mail. I want proof he received it. Next, I contacted the medical examiner's office directly. I told them I had reason to believe the dental records used to identify my daughter 7 years ago were fraudulent, and I requested a formal review of the case. I provided Roger's findings, the dentist's statement, everything. The woman I spoke to was skeptical at first, but I was calm and methodical, and eventually she agreed to open an inquiry. If what you're saying is true, Mr. Harper, this is a serious matter. We'll need time to investigate. How much time? 2 weeks. Maybe 3. That's fine, I said. Take all the time you need. But I didn't plan to wait that long. I drove to Rhinebeck on Thursday. It took me 2 hours, winding through back roads and small towns, until I reached the main street where Willow, Emma, worked. The boutique was called Ivy and Birch, a trendy little shop with exposed brick and Edison bulbs hanging from the ceiling. I parked across the street and waited. She appeared at noon, stepping out for lunch, a canvas tote bag slung over her shoulder. She looked healthy, happy. She stopped at a cafe, ordered a sandwich, and sat outside in the sun, scrolling through her phone. I watched her for 20 minutes, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. This was my daughter, the girl I'd raised, the woman I'd mourned, and she'd betrayed me in the cruelest way imaginable. I didn't approach her. Not yet. I needed her to feel safe, comfortable, unsuspecting. I took photos, dozens of them, clear shots of her face, her profile, her walking down the street, evidence that Emma Clark and Willow Harper were the same person. Then I drove home and sent them to Harold. This is her, I wrote. This is my daughter, alive and well and living under an assumed name. I want this included in the lawsuit. Harold called me an hour later. Stephen, if you're right about this, if she faked her death, you're talking about criminal charges. Fraud, identity theft, maybe more. I know. This isn't just about the money anymore. You're opening a door that can't be closed. She opened it 7 years ago. I said, I'm just walking through. Brad received the demand letter on Friday. I know because Roger had someone watching his house, and they reported that he'd signed for the certified mail at 10:15 in the morning. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. Stephen, Brad's voice was tight, strained. I just got a letter from your attorney. What's going on? I think the letter is pretty clear, I said calmly. I'm asking for the money back. Why? I don't understand. Have I done something wrong? Have you? There was a pause. I could almost hear him thinking, calculating. Stephen, I've been nothing but grateful for your help. You know that. I've used every dollar to take care of Ivy, to keep us afloat. Is that so? Yes. I can show you receipts, bank statements, whatever you need. That won't be necessary. Another pause. Longer this time. What's this really about? It's about the truth, Brad. Something I think you've been avoiding for a very long time. His voice dropped. I don't know what you're talking about. Then you have nothing to worry about. You've got 14 days to respond. I suggest you use them wisely. I hung up. Roger called me that evening. He's rattled. My guy saw him leave the house 20 minutes after you hung up. Drove straight to a law office downtown. He's lawyering up, I said. Good. Why is that good? Because it means he's scared, and scared people make mistakes. That Sunday, I received a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at Harmon Park tomorrow at noon. Alone. I showed it to Roger. He frowned. Could be Brad. Could be someone else. Willow, I said. You think she knows? Brad must have told her. Or Vanessa did. Either way, she's coming out of hiding. You want me there? I thought about it. No, I need to face her alone, but stay close, in case things go wrong. The next day, I arrived at Harmon Park at 11:45. It was a sprawling green space with walking trails and a small pond, mostly empty on a Monday afternoon. I sat on a bench near the water and waited. She appeared at exactly noon, walking slowly down the path, her hands shoved into the pockets of a denim jacket. Willow, my daughter. She stopped a few feet away, her expression unreadable. Hi, Dad. I didn't respond. I just looked at her, taking in every detail. The way she stood, the way her jaw tightened when she was nervous, just like it had when she was a kid. I guess you know, she said finally. That you're alive? Yes. She flinched. I can explain. I'm listening. She sat down on the bench, keeping a careful distance between us. It wasn't supposed to go this way. It wasn't supposed to hurt you. But it did. I know. Her voice cracked. I know, and I'm sorry. But you don't understand what it was like. Living with Brad. He was controlling, manipulative. I felt like I was drowning. I couldn't breathe. So you fake your death. She nodded. Vanessa helped me. She knew people. People who could make it look real. We thought if Brad believed I was dead, he'd move on, and I could start over. Be free. And the money? I asked quietly. She looked away. That was Brad's idea. He said you'd want to help him, that you'd feel guilty if you didn't. So you let him take $280,000 from me while I mourned you, while your mother died of grief. Willow's face crumpled. I didn't know about Mom. Not until it was too late. Brad didn't tell me. By the time I found out, I couldn't come back. It was too late. I felt no sympathy, only cold, burning anger. And Ivy? I asked. What about her? I miss her every day, Willow whispered. But she's safe. She's with Brad, and she's got you. She warned me about Brad, I said. Told me to watch him. She's 7 years old, and she knew something was wrong. Willow wiped her eyes. I didn't want any of this. I just wanted out. Then you should have asked for help, not destroyed everything. She looked at me, her expression desperate. What are you going to do? I stood up. I'm going to make sure Ivy is safe, and I'm going to make sure you and Brad answer for what you've done. Dad, please. Don't, I said. You stopped being my daughter the day you put coffee grounds in that urn and handed it to me. I walked away, leaving her sitting on that bench, and I didn't look back. Roger met me at my car. How'd it go? She confirmed everything. I said. She's alive. She faked it. Brad's been using the money. It's all true. So what now? Now we finish this. The next morning, I filed a formal complaint with the district attorney's office, attaching everything. The photos of Willow, the fraudulent dental records, the financial statements, Brad's signed letters, the texts. I also filed an emergency custody petition for Ivy, citing Brad's involvement in fraud and his inability to provide a stable environment. Harold worked fast. By Wednesday, we had a court date scheduled for the following Monday. Brad called me again on Thursday, his voice frantic. Stephen, we can work this out. Please, don't do this to Ivy. I'm doing this for Ivy, I said. She needs her father. She needs someone who tells the truth. You're not that person. I'll pay you back. Every dollar. I swear. It's not about the money anymore, Brad. It's about what you did. What you both did. Willow had no choice. There's always a choice, I said and hung up. On Sunday night, the night before the court hearing, I went to Brad's house. Not to confront him, just to see Ivy one more time, in case things didn't go the way I hoped. Brad answered the door, looking haggard. Stephen, I didn't expect. I'm here for Ivy, I said. He hesitated, then stepped aside. Ivy was in the living room, coloring at the coffee table. She looked up when I walked in, and her face broke into a smile. Grandpa, I knelt down beside her, pulling her into a hug. Hey, sweetheart. Are you staying for dinner? Not tonight, but I wanted to see you. She pulled back, studying my face with those sharp green eyes. Are you okay, Grandpa? I smiled, even though my heart was breaking. I'm okay, and you're going to be okay too. The hearing was held at 9 a.m. in a courthouse downtown. Harold sat beside me at the plaintiff's table, calm and composed. Across the aisle, Brad sat with his attorney, a young man in an ill-fitting suit who looked nervous. The judge, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair, reviewed the documents in silence for what felt like an eternity. Then she looked up. "Mr. Harper, these are serious allegations. Fraud, identity theft, falsifying official records. How do you respond?" Brad's attorney stood. "Your Honor, my client denies all accusations. He was acting in good faith." "Is Willow Harper alive?" the judge interrupted. The courtroom went silent. Brad's attorney glanced at Brad, who stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched. "Your Honor," the attorney said slowly, "we request time to investigate these claims." "That's not an answer," the judge said sharply. "Is she alive?" Brad closed his eyes. "Yes." The judge's expression hardened. "Then this court finds sufficient cause to grant emergency custody of Ivy Harper to Stephen Harper, pending a full investigation. Bailiff, please arrange for Child Protective Services to retrieve the child immediately." Brad's face went white. No, you can't. You forfeited your right to custody when you committed fraud, Mr. Harper," the judge said coldly. "This hearing is adjourned." I walked out of that courtroom with my head high and my conscience clear. 3 days later, Ivy moved into my house. She cried the first night, missing Brad despite everything, and I held her until she fell asleep. I told her the truth, as gently as I could, that her mother was alive, but had made a terrible mistake, that her father had made mistakes too, but that I would always be there for her. Brad and Willow were both arrested the following week. The charges included fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Vanessa was arrested as an accessory. The district attorney is pursuing the maximum penalties. I don't know what will happen to them. I don't particularly care. What I do know is this: Ivy is safe. She's thriving. She asks about her mother sometimes, and I answer honestly. I don't lie to her. I don't hide the truth, because the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than a beautiful lie. And as for me, I sleep soundly now. The urn is gone. The money doesn't matter. What matters is that justice was served, quietly and completely, the way it should be. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make threats. I just did what needed to be done. And that, I think, is the lesson Ivy will carry with her for the rest of her life. That patience, preparation, and principle will always outlast greed. They underestimated me. They thought I was just a grieving old man, too broken to see what was happening. They were wrong.